And this is for me every time, basically when I'm praying or trying to do something, I'm telling Lord what you should do. I think most of us will do when we pray, Lord, I want the miracle right now. But God says, I'm teaching you something, just hold on for a while. I will do miracle, I'm in miracle business, but just hold for a while. And this is what he was teaching me. And every time I see in the Bible that when God says that he's passing by, he's up to do something amazing things. He said to Moses, stand on the mountain, let my glory pass. He was doing miracle. When he said to Elijah, let my glory pass, he was up to do something. And the same thing we found in the Matthew 23 when Jesus told his disciples that you go to the other side of the sea and I will see you in the morning. I think this sentence gives the promise. You go other side and I will see you, which means you will be safe and I will see you. And this is the thing that Jesus is already telling us. He says, from here to there, I will see you. What I start, I will finish. But what we have to do during the time, from here to there, trust the Lord. Wait for him. But what happened when Jesus said to his disciples, 12 disciples, he says, you go other side, I will see you in the morning. Or I will see you other side. Disciples did not trust it. Like we do. Most of the time we get weary. And the story began, the disciple jumped into the boat, went to the other side, and it gets very, very dark. Now just imagine the picture. Those disciples are in the boat. They never saw the biggest wave they were watching right there. Heavy storm came, pitch dark black. They cannot see each other. If you are in that boat, how you would feel? We all should be frightened, isn't it? But plus, now you see, and the disciples saw that someone walking on the water and coming towards them. I think we should be more frightened now. There's a heavy storm, and the boat is not like cruise ship or Titanic ship, big one, but it's a small ship, boat, wooden boat, like we found in Pakistan and India. And there's a 12 disciples, somebody walking and coming towards them. I think as a human being, we all should fear. And they feared and they shouted. But here the sound came, he says, it is me. Jesus says, it is me. When he said it is me, it was not only for one person in the boat, but it was for all the 12 disciples. That was basically was the invitation. Jesus was passing by, meaning he had to do something amazing. When Jesus says, it is me, only one disciple responded, was the Peter. He said, if it's you, Lord, tell me to come to you. There was nothing else Peter said. That's very amazing, because Peter should have said, let me just put my legs and see if the water is cold or hot or is how deep it is. Or Lord, are you giving me guarantee that if I jump off, I will not drown? He asked nothing. Only said, if it is you, because Peter knows, if it's Jesus, everything will be okay. And that's a miracle happened when Jesus says, come. When he said come, he never said to the Peter, he said to all 12 disciples. Those invitation was for every disciple in the boat. It was not only for Peter. Who took the opportunity? Only Peter. So as a believer, we all have a calling in our lives. And the calling is Go, share the gospel, make disciples. That is all our calling. Invitation is for every single person. You sitting here, you have a calling in your lives. But how you respond to that invitation is up to you. Like Peter or like the other 11 disciples who choose to sit in the boat. If you decided to sit in the boat, something will not happen to you. But if you choose to jump off out of your comfort zone, try to go where Jesus is not in the boat, he's in the water. There's a storm and everything. Peter walked on the water, the word says. That invitation was for particular time, specific time for those disciples. And that's the invitation for all of you here. How long we live? We don't know, maybe we'll see each other tomorrow or not, when God calls us home. Or maybe he can come back, we don't know. While I was standing there, I just saw there is a 2, 4, 5 petals fell down. It just brought my attention. This is kind of life we're having. We don't know when it's gone. But while we are on this earth, we have a calling. And there's an invitation for each of us here. You want to sit in the boat or you want to jump and go where Jesus is. So Peter and those people have the invitation. Peter took it. And the invitation was very, very limited time. And we know now that Peter is the only person who ever walked on the water. Nobody ever will. Nobody before did. Who took the invitation, use it, they see the miracles. And this is what we need to do with our lives. So 22 years back, Pastor Graham from Australia, Pastor Graham Chividen, he also left his boat, his comfort zone, and tried to share gospel with me. I came from a Muslim background. At the age of 16, I memorized entire Quran. I basically did my education, Islamic education, on the university level. My parents are from India. They moved to Pakistan because of Islamic ministry that people was calling them. And I grew up there, so I'm a Pakistani. So when I memorized the Quran, did my study as a youth, there was a conference. Because my father was chairman of Islamic organization, and our job was to travel and tell people about Islam. Teach people, train people, go and tell others. This was our job as a Muslim. So 22 years back, there was a conference in Moscow, Russia. All the youth from around the world represent there. So I represent my city called Karachi, used to be capital of Pakistan. An amazing thing is that 22 years back, internet was just introduced in Asia. And the Muslim people was worried how we can propagate Islam by using the media. And that's the reason, this was the agenda for the meeting. So we went there, they give us the many, many Bible verses. I will share later on with you, out of context, of course. But only reason was to go and tell Christians. There are the Jews, there's the Hindus, there's the agnostic, there's the atheists, there's the many, many other people. More than 250 youth were trained to go and share the Islam with the Christians. And that was a significant for me. And I asked my father, why only Christian? Why not the Jews? He said, because that are the challenges for the Islam. So we are the challenge for the Islam. Everywhere around the world, why Bible? You see in Pakistan, if you go in Islamic country, you can give the Bhagavad Gita, Hindu book, nobody will kill you. You just give the one verse to any single person, distribute, you will see what happened to you. They will kill you same time. The reason is because they know there is something in the word of God. They don't allow people to use it. So while we came back, I started the ministry on the internet looking for a Christian people. It was very easy for me to find Matthew, Peter, Paul, and I just go there and I just ask them. And I just ask simple one question. Are you saved? Most of them say, yes, we are saved. And my second question was, as a Muslim, I'm talking to the Christian, saved from what? And you see little bit now, troubles come. If they say we saved from sin, I say, so you don't do sin anymore? He said, we do. He said, so then you are not saved. So I was trying to confuse the Christians, and I very sad to say I was getting success. I was very successful. That's why Jesus says, go and make disciples. Teach them. Because the church is strong, we should give the very right answers. Well, thing was continue. I was very excited. Okay, everything was going well. I'm trying to bring the doubt into the heart of the Christians people. And then I was not satisfied. I said, okay, I'm going to look for the pastor. And, well, that was a God plan, everything. That was a God plan for my lives. And I went to the chat room and I said, this was no WhatsApp and Facebook or Instagram, nothing. That was Paul Talk and some other, I'm talking about 22 years back. So I went to the chat room and the pastor room and I just said to the main place, is there any pastor who would like to teach me about Christianity? And here the Pastor Graham just came, he said, I would like to, let's go. Give me email address, then we spoke. We, sometime as a believer, we share the gospel with someone and we don't see any result, we says, there is no hope. Can you guess how many years Pastor Graham was sharing the gospel with me without getting tired? Not 1 month, not 2 months, not 3 months, not 1 year, 5 long years. He just had the hope. And he was just keep sharing the gospel with me. Now, within 5 years, you can see that how many topics we can discuss. I cannot share with you all of them. I might share only 2 today. His approach was absolutely different. Ask good questions to clarify and share the gospel. Simple. And he just came to me and he says, okay, so are you a Muslim? I say, yes. He said, you are a Muslim because you was born into the Muslim family, Muslim culture, Muslim community, and Muslim country, or you are a Muslim because you understood Islam. And the question was, I did not have 100% answer because it was both mixed. In my case, because I studied Islam, so I said both. And he asked me very first, then another question, he says, how you want to get to heaven, or what is the Islam teaches you that you will get to heaven or have eternal life? And Islam is based on the good work. If you do the good work, you might get to heaven. No assurance, no surety, but you might. Just a hope. But the thing is, the hope only works in this life, not life after. Let me give a reason. We all is struggling with the corona. Everywhere is pandemic. That's why using the mask and, we can't hug each other. But we have a hope that vaccination will arrive soon and everything will be normal. Maybe some person is struggling with some sickness, but we have a hope that it might get better. There is a hope until we are breathing, our eyes are open. But the moment we close our eyes, there is no hope. The only hope for those people, basically this I don't call hope, I call guarantee, surety. The person who is a believer, he will have eternal life. That's the word of God says. So we don't believe in hope. We believe in surety, what Jesus gave. He said, no one can take you out of my hands. And that's a surety that we have. So, Pastor Graham, I told him, I want to go to heaven, or I'm trying to go to heaven by doing the good works. And he says, okay. And he's a very good asking question. He said, if you go to buy a house, you know the price. Maybe you want to buy for 1.1 million, 1 million, or 1.2 million house. I say yes. He said, if you go and want to buy the car, you know, okay, 80,000, 90,000, what price you're looking for. So anything in this world, if you go and try to look, you know the price. So if you want to go to heaven, how many good deeds do you need? No answer for me, because as a Muslim, Islam does not teach is how many good deeds do you need. So we live our lives in the darkness, if I say. Like we don't know if we will make it or won't make it. Then he said, how many good deeds do you need? He said, we don't know. He said, okay, what are those good deeds? Tell me. He's trying to clarify from Muslim perspective. And I told him, for example, praying 5 times a day. He said, okay, let's talk about it. Is praying 5 times compulsory, or you just pray whenever you want? He said, no, it's a compulsory. You have to pray on the specific time towards Saudi Arab, Makkah, if you say, and in the specific way. And you have to pray in Arabic. No other language. You have to pray in Arabic. He said, okay. So if you miss one time prayer, what will be the punishment? Since it's compulsory, you cannot miss it. What is the punishment? And as a Muslim, every Muslim person you ask this question, they will tell you, 70 years burning into the hellfire for missing one time prayer. And he asked me the second question, how many prayer have you missed? I did not even remember. I cannot even count it, how many prayer I missed it. And he says, if you don't remember, just save 200 prayer in your life. Maybe it's more than 20,000 prayer, I missed it. But he said, just imagine for 200. If you miss 200, multiply with the 70 years. How many is? He said, only this is for the prayer. What about having lust? What about having the bad thoughts about other people, backbiting, stealing, cheating, or, you name the list of the sins. He said, what about those punishments? If you count those, it's going to be million years burning into the hellfire. I say, yes. Then he says, can I share with you now? You see, he tried to figure it out what I believe. He already put doubt in my mind. But then he says, can I share with you why I am so confident the moment I close my eyes where I will be? I said, please share. And he shared with me about, because Bible is very, very clear when it comes to the assurance of salvation. We don't live in the darkness. I said, okay, that was just one nail, in the wall. And the second topic, that's all I will share. I can't share more than that. It was about the women. He asked, what does Islam give equal rights to the men and women? As a Muslims, we already says yes. That's not true. And he asked me a question. He says, if the man wants to give a divorce to a woman, like a wife, what he has to do? The man has to say 3 words. Maybe you are familiar with it. It's called talaq, means divorce in Arabic. If the man says 3 times to the woman, I give you talaq, 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 divorce happen. Woman gone. When I shared this, he asked me the question. He says, what if the woman says the same 3 words to the man? Divorce happen? No. He said, what if the woman says 100 times that words? Nothing will happen. 1,000 times, no divorce happen. He says, so where is the equal rights? Man can say a words 3 times, divorce happen. Woman can say same words 1,000,000 times, divorce not happening. So man has the more authority, isn't it? I did not have anything to say because I was pushing by the, a wall. I could not say anything. Then he asked me another question. He said, if divorce happen, now they want to reconcile back again, husband and wife. Can they do that? Because Pastor Graham studied Islam. He knows what question to ask. So I said, if they got divorced, if they want to reconcile back again, the woman has to go and get married with someone else. And when that man give her divorce, then only she can come back and reconcile with the first husband. And it's called halala. You can ask any Muslim. Whatever I'm saying is recording there. You ask any Muslim, they will tell you. Divorce happened, they cannot come and reconcile again. So he says, the man has to do same thing, that he has to go and marry other woman, and when that woman and divorce happened, then they come reconcile. I said, no, man doesn't have to do that, only woman. So women have to suffer. Even the man is a drunk or something, he just divorce. But the woman will go and suffer. Until that man give divorce, only then she can come back and have a reconcile with the first man. In our faith, and he shared with me, divorce is not good. It's permitted with circumstances, but God hates divorce. He said, but if some person divorce in Christianity, you can come and reconcile next day. She doesn't have to go and marry with someone else. Because Christ wants reconciliation. And it really hits me because it's so easy. And there's many points, but last point we observe all the time, especially on the Friday, that women cover a lot, Muslim women. So he asked me a question, why women covers? And he knew that what answer I'm going to give. I said, women covers because when man looking at the woman, he does not have a lust because she's covered. He said, that's very good. Now imagine the woman is covered, eyes is still open, she still can see. But men are not covering. So that means the woman can look at the man and she can have the lust. So that means men also supposed to be covering them. So both can be safe. Really makes sense. Why men are not covering only women? We all human beings. Women can have a lust, men can have a lust. So God's supposed to protect both of them. Why only the men? Why only women have to cover and struggle, not why men? And he asked me, I'm going to close here for this topic because I'm going to continue something else. He said, if the man give divorce, after how many days he can get married? Men can get married same time. What about women? Woman has to wait for 3 months before she get married. And we have some, excuses as a Muslim. We say because maybe she's pregnant, so they have to wait for the 3 period. Now, imagine he's from Australia, a well advanced country. And he says, here, if the women are pregnant for 1 week, or even 1 day, our machine can tell them that she's pregnant. So she doesn't have to wait for the 3 months. He said, no, she has to wait 3 months. Why? Because we have to follow the law 1,400 years old, Arab culture. So who is struggling in everything? Women. Men have a privilege. And then he says, do you still think that Islam provides the equal rights to both of them? And this time my answer was, I don't think so. And like this, thousands of topics we discussed within 5 years. And while that discussion was going on, my father was struggling with his health. So he had a cancer. So he passed away 1 year before I accepted Christ. While I was talking 4 years with Pastor Graham, he gone. So now, his ministry and everybody wanted me to take over. And that's what they were preparing, and that's a challenge came. And now I'm in the different routes. And the one thing that was happening, and my entire family was pushing me because every privilege, we were very rich, we were very wealthy doing it because we were provided every single thing. House, car, finance to go all around the world, everything was provided. And it was depending on me because if I go and follow Islam, everything will remain. I did not. So everything was taken away. But well, God being very gracious and good, He provided all the time. There was no lack. We never slept any time without food. But that's what happened. And the challenge began because I wanted to know more about Christ. I wanted to know about this God. Who is He? That His teaching is so amazing. I went to the many churches in Pakistan, but Pakistani law does not allow any Muslims who accept Christ, because after 5 long years, while I was in Pakistan, I accepted Christ. But I wanted to know more about God. And I went to the few churches, and in Pakistani law, if the Muslim person become a believer, he cannot join the church. If the church accepted any ex-Muslim, the church will be closed down and the pastor will be in prison for life. So I was struggling basically. So that's what happened in many Islamic countries. If the Muslim person even leave Islam and become a believer, they cannot easily join the church, and that's a struggle. So what happened? I'm just a believer, but I'm not growing believer. And that's how I asked Pastor Graham what I should do, and he says, go to South Africa. I don't know why he said, because my father and I, we travel a lot in Middle East and Asia, always avoid Africa. But this time Pastor Graham saying, go to South Africa. But I was stubborn, so I've been many times Malaysia, Singapore and Thailand, several times, and I applied for there just to go and study. All 3 countries denied my visa. When I applied for South Africa, without not much document that I submitted on that time, but the lady named Suzanne, white lady, and she just gave me 6-month multiple visa. That's how I ended up in South Africa. And when I came here, because there was 2 very mega churches, I'm not going to share the name, one in Johannesburg, one in Durban. They both promised to Pastor Graham that when Rehan comes here, his sponsorship, everything is sorted out. Just let him come here. I arrived here. I went to the Johannesburg church. I went to the Durban church. The both pastor said, we got your details. We will call you very soon. Don't worry, we'll call you. It's been 17 years. I never received the call. But God has a reason. You know, that's happened most of the time. This is sad. But you see, if they did not reject, I'm not what I am right now. And that's how, if you know the Pastor Theo, he's a Christian Family Church. So I decided after 2.5 years, I said, I think I made a mistake to come South Africa. I think I should go back. I booked my ticket. I still remember Thursday morning I was supposed to depart from South Africa, Johannesburg. I was in Mayfair, not very far from you. And I was working there, Oriental Plaza, as a teller. While I'm sitting there, because I already booked the flight, and I said, okay, I'm going to go. Now this is a Sunday. All the Pakistani and Indian people that we used to stay together, some went work, some went out. I'm the alone at home. Something was ringing in my head. Let's go into internet cafe and talk to your family. Tell them that you are coming. So I took a walk. Standard Bank next to it, because he used to be in charge for Mayfair and Forsberg. So his detail was there. Same time I sent the SMS. And same time he replied me, said, do not go, there's a pastor on his way to meet you. And when the pastor came, he's also ex-Muslim from Afghanistan, Pastor Amir Khan. So he came and he said, you already booked the flight. But before I come, I already spoke to some cell group in Alberton. If you came to my house, I think most of you came in Alberton. The same house was the cell group. And he says, they invited you to share the testimony. I'm speaking a bit English right now, but before I could not even speak a word. I don't know what I shared. But there was about 6 or 7 old Afrikaans couple. Old, plus 60. And they says, after hearing, my testimony, and says, we will sponsor you for 3 years. Any Bible college in South Africa, go choose. And that's how I end up. In the house that I'm staying right now, they were the people who sponsored me 14 years back. I had the many Bible colleges to choose from, but somehow I choose African Africa School of Mission, and that's how the very first person who welcomed me in the Bible college was my wife Charlene. So, so God has a purpose. Well, her heart from the beginning is to go and serve in the persecuted countries like China, Pakistan. Basically, she was going to Iraq to do the ministry. Her father is a missionary in Zambia and Mozambique. Last 30 years, I think, she can speak the Zambian language. We moved to Zambia for 3 years as a missionary as well. Then we moved back. But in the nutshell, God has been so gracious. He always. But we wanted to go Pakistan, and somehow God did not open any door. I'm from there. I want to go back and reach to those people. But somehow I did not have any answer from the Lord. Every door that I knocked was closed down. So we start ministry in Zambia, Mozambique, and South Africa, and especially in Durban and Eastern Cape. Then 6 years back, I received the answer from the Lord that why He did not allow us to go Pakistan on that particular time. If you know CBN, Christian Broadcast Network, is one of the biggest network in the world. Somehow my friend used to work for them, and they launched the Urdu Christian TV channel in Pakistan, and they are looking for, and as soon they put the program, thousands Muslims sending the emails, the messages, and phone calls are coming, and they need a person to follow up. So my friends recommended me, and they approached me, CBN approached me, and the TV name is Zindagi. If you go and search zindagi.net, all is in Urdu, but that's a channel. And I said, okay, I would like to help. So I start with the 2 hours as a volunteer, then the 4 hour, then the 6 hour. Now I am working full time for them. But what is the amazing things, beside running the ministry called Fazl-e-Rab, God's grace pastor, your dear pastor is one of our elder in the ministry, and the board member as well, the family. We came to South Africa and we started the ministry. In Alberton. With that house that we are staying, the people sponsor us 14 years back. They give in that house for us to, they're not charging us any rent for the last 5 years. Free house, and we're doing the ministry. And if you know, like every second Saturday and sometimes Wednesday, there's lots of Muslims in our house. We discuss, we have a dialogue, we discuss each other, we do training, and things are going very well. So God has been using us a lot. So what happened for that Christian channel that I'm working? There are hundreds of thousands emails that is still pending that I cannot touch it. There are so many Muslims that contacted us. And last 5 years that God has used, I'm nothing but He used me to share the gospel with 1,000 of Muslims, and 66 Muslims accepted Christ. And 2 of them are in Saudi Arabia. They are Pakistani, but working there and watch the TV channel, then communicate with us, and we discuss, we help them to know Islam, just clarify with them like Pastor Graham used to do with me. And God is busy working. When Jesus said the harvest is plentiful, the labors are few. Believe me, we sometimes wrongly assume that when we share the gospel with the Muslims, they're very stubborn, they don't accept Christ. I am the testimony before you, and I'm telling you there's 1,000 of the people who are accepting Christ. Thing is, same back again. Are you asked to jump out of the boat or not? If you walk out of the boat, you can walk in the water. You can see the miracles. Miracles not going to happen when we are in here. Miracles happening in the field. Jesus says the harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few. So this is my testimony. My family rejected me at the beginning. So 5 long years it was between me and my family. There was no communication because my mother is a muallima, means she teach. My wife met them. They know what they are. So my mother teaches more than 60 girls Quran. So she's a staunch Muslim. So there was very hard for us to accept it. But the one thing that always helps me is to follow the example of Christ. Because Jesus says, honor your parents, your family. And I communicate, I just keep doing that. And at the end, they soften their heart, God soften their heart, because they see there is something. What is the wrong perspective of our faith, our Christianity to the Muslims, especially the people who are not among the Western, like in Pakistan, in India? The concept is that one person become a believer, he will leave his parents, he will drink, he will eat pigs, and he will do all the nonsense the world is doing it. And that's a concept in their minds. But when they saw that the life become better for me, the respect, I start respecting them more, I'm more honoring them. And everything changed. Now, and if you go to the Pakistan and meet my family, you will say they are staunch Muslims. But you know what? We go, we sit with them, and they talk to us. And they talk to us nicely. There is nothing. Basically, first time when my wife went, my mother and my auntie, they teach Quran. So they come to me and they says, can we teach her Islam? I said, no problem. You can do it. One thing is, but do not force anything. She will sit with you, teach her. And you know what? My mother bought the very expensive Quran, my aunties, and give her as a, one side is English, one side is Arabic. Oh, sorry. Yeah, English and Arabic, isn't it? Yeah. And amazingly, what God does, the very first chapter they choose to teach her was the chapter 3, called Surah Al-Imran, means the family of Imran, which is Moses. If you find the entire story of Jesus Christ in the Quran, this is the chapter. Chapter 3, start from the verse 30 to 55. Jesus born, does all the miracles, and he was a mighty prophet. That's what this says. And when she was going through and she asked them a question, basically they get confused. Because in that chapter 3, verse 55, it says that God will uplift the Christians, basically say follower of Christ, until the day of judgment above everyone. And once they heard that, the verse, and she asked the question, how can be a Christian, which you think is not the believer, they can be higher than even the Muslim until the day of judgment? And they have no answer. So there's a lots of things that God has been doing, but only thing that we as a believer has to do, we have to just keep following the example of Christ. I would like to encourage all of you from the Matthew 25, verse 14 to 38. This is the parable of talent. And this is for all of us, especially for me as well. The word says, let me just read it. The parable about the talents. Verse 14. Similarly, it is like a man going on a trip who called his servant and turned his money over to them. To one man he gave 5 talents, to other 2, and other 1. If we see the Roman culture, they colonized all the Middle East, and especially our Arabs and part of Israel and other places in Europe too. So whenever someone wants to become a mayor or something, is chosen to mayor for the different part of the world, they have to come to the Rome to get the titles. And here is the story that the rich man is going away. He called his 3 servants. When this person is going somewhere else to get his badge or banner to become a mayor, he has to give responsibility to someone else. So here is the rich man, he's going away. He took his 3 reliable servants and he says, here are the talents. He gave 1 to 5, 1 to 2, 1 to 1. And he's gone. And the word says that when he came later on, he asked what you did with it. So the person he gave 5, he invested. He used it. He multiplied 5 more, so it's become 10. When the master came and asked, he said, there is a 10. It's a good and faithful servant. You being faithful for little. Now, imagine how rich this person is, that 5 talent. The 1 talent on that time was 2.5 years after 1 good salary. If you put now is over 500,000 rand for 1 talent. So he give 250,000 rand or maybe more to one person, and he multiply. And he says, I gave you little, you've been faithful. 250,000 rand is a less for that master, but I will give you more. Same thing he said to the person who gives 2, he multiply in 2. But to come to the last one, he asked, what you did? He said, I know. You are shrewd. I did not invest. I didn't want to lose it. So I buried it. Now you came, so I'm giving you back. What is wrong with it? If I give you some money and you give me same money back, I'm supposed to be happy. At least I got the money back. But the master is not happy. Master is saying you're the lazy and wicked person. Why master is angry? Master is supposed to be happy. At least he got his money back. What if he just go and abuse the money and use it? But there is a lesson for all of us. God, is there any person sitting here that you believe that God never gave you any skills or the gift to use for his kingdom? I don't believe that, because what says every single person, some he give 5, some he give 2, some he give 3, but at least you got 1 talent, or you say the gift. So we can use for his kingdom to serve him. So what do you think that this person who got 1 talent did not use it? Maybe he was jealous that why the master giving them a 5 or 2 or not giving me 1, I'm deserve same. Can be. What does not say why he did it, but we can speculate. And I'm taking very light. I'm not telling you this is what I'm meaning, but this is what I assume is my opinion. Maybe he was afraid to use it. Maybe he's going to lose it. Or there can be many other reasons. Maybe he thinks that he gave me 1, what I cannot earn anything, I cannot serve anything with the 1 talent or 1 gift. They have 5, so they can do more. And this is the lesson for all of us. As a believer, he gave us the gift. Maybe you have 5, maybe you have 2, maybe you have 1, but you are not without gift. If you are without gift, he will say, you know what, Rehan, you don't need to serve me because I never give any gift. He asks every single believer, go and make disciples. How you going to do it? If you go on the sea or river or the lake or anywhere, people are catching the fish in a different way. There are more than 62 type of fishing nets to catch the fish. Maybe one person can use 5 different ways to catch the fish. Maybe some person, I only can fish with the reel. I cannot do anything else. But my wife can do maybe 3, 4. Because she loves fishing. Basically, I never did fishing in Pakistan. She taught me when I came to South Africa. Because they are from Durban. So whenever the parents are not in the mission field, they are on the beach catching fish. So what I'm trying to say that we all have the fishing nets. God has given us at least 1. Maybe some have 10, some have 5. Amazing thing is that when master came back, he did not ask the person who gave his 2 about what the person who has 5. If he give you 1, he will only ask you 1. He will not say, what about him? We all responsible the gift that God has given us. What we have to do, who belongs to gifts? Who belongs to talents for the master? Every single thing that we have belongs to our God. The master is basically God in these parables. He has given every single person something to do. Now it depends on us. If we just sit here and say, you know what, Pastor Oliver got 5 talent, I got 1 talent, I'm not going to use it. I'm going to compete with him. Or basically, I just work with him and use my talent. Or I can help other person to use his talent. Or look down the person who has 1 talent. This is not what kingdom is all about. The kingdom is all about, you have 1, use it. You have 5, use it. All depend on us. We need to use the gift that was given us. If you want to use the gift, you need to jump out of the boat. Because Jesus is not in the boat. That we need to remember. Jesus not in the boat. Boat is very safe, maybe. But disciple was frightened inside the boat. Sometimes we think we are more safe in the house. Roof can fall down, we can die. You know that. Death gonna come, is gonna come anywhere. When God calls us, it can come anywhere. But if the roof fell down, nobody is there to protect you. But if we are out in the water where Jesus is, there is somebody to protect you. And that's what the Jesus says to Peter. No agreement, if I'm going to drown or something going to happen to me, Jesus says, come, Peter comes. And as a believer, we have to do the same as obedience. God says, go make disciples. We don't have to ask, Lord, where are we going to get the money to go? Lord, what's going to happen to my family behind? Because He already said, seek the kingdom of the God first. And every single thing. He never says something. He says everything else will be given to you. Where we are we seeking the kingdom of God first? Are we trying to do something that God has given us the gift, use it to serve? This is upon us. He is not the Lord that is going to take the whip and says, okay, use it. But He's going to judge us. We're going to hear the 2 words. You are the wicked person, lazy person, or good and faithful servant. If He given us one, please go and use it. Use in your family, use your neighbor, relatives, wherever. Try to share the gospel, whatever gift He has given you. Because of that, you're going to hear good and faithful servant. There are lots of things I could share, but I think I will leave you here. May God bless you.